What's that?
Our AA Best Bail Bonds Radio Row coverage from New Orleans is brought to you in part by Flight by Yuengling, Circa Las Vegas, Smokey Mo's Barbecue, Synergenx Testosterone and Weight Loss, and Southern Recipe Pork Rinds on 94.1 San Antonio's Sports Star.
Welcome back to the Blitz here on 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star. He's Joe Reinagel. I'm Jason Minix. In New Orleans, our AA Best Bail Bonds Radio Row coverage continues with what has become a good friend of the show, the Moose, Daryl Johnston. Do I just three-time Super Bowl champ Fox or the guy running the UFL? Where do we want to start?
Let's go in that order. Let's go Dallas first.
Uh-oh.
And then
okay.
we'll finish with the UFL.
There we go.
I don't know if we get past Dallas.
Yeah, we put the timer on. We give it 3 minutes.
All right, 3 minutes. The end of the season decision making, going with Schottenheimer, the interview process that didn't seem thorough. As an analyst, as a former player, as an executive, did you just look at Jerry and go, what's going on over there?
Yeah, I think the big thing is we hear all the stuff regarding Luka, and it sounds like there was a tremendous breakdown in communication there. So it seems like right now the Dallas sports franchises are having a tough time communicating within their organizations. So the only thing that I can figure out, and again, this is a guy from the outside gathering bits and pieces of information and trying to create a scenario or a theory on what happened. I think the big thing is for everybody to remember, everybody on the staff didn't have a contract. So at some point, if you're going to renegotiate with Mike McCarthy, you're going to sit down and you're going to make proposals. So it sounds like, and this is because the one thing that stands out to me is it looks like Dallas got caught by surprise. And you talk about not going through the thorough search process or interview process. The reason we're not doing that is because we feel comfortable this is going to be the scenario that's going to happen. And so I think they really felt they were going to sit down with Mike McCarthy because obviously they want to stay status quo. It was an inside hire with Brian Schottenheimer, so there was no desire to step outside and start from scratch again, which I was happy to hear. But did Mike McCarthy come in wanting to renew his contract and say, here's my ask, and it was more than the Cowboys wanted to play, so now they've got to shift because Mike's not coming off that number, and the organization's not going to pay that number, so you're at a standoff immediately, late in the process. You want to stay status quo and let everything grow. You've missed out on the hiring cycle early on because you thought you had this plan in place that was going to be able to be executed, and at the last second, your number one candidate throws you a curveball because he wants a nice bump in salary. And just as a comparison, well, who out there would Mike compare it to? Probably Sean Payton. One Super Bowl victory each as a head coach, very similar winning percentage. And, Sean got a great contract in Denver. So was that just, too big a bite of the apple for the organization, to commit to? So that's the only thing I can figure. And then, the fact that, Mike went and looked at, a couple of teams, but then he's gonna sit out this year and sit out without a contract that he had 1 year left on or he had 2 years left on. So he's sitting out, trying to figure this whole thing out, which I think is good. I like when guys take a moment and let me reset everything and wait for the opportunity to come to me that I like, because he's at a stage in his career where he doesn't need to chase an opportunity.
Daryl, the whole Mike McCarthy thing just seems like the cherry on top. The past year, going into the season for the Cowboys, there was no free agency moves. It just didn't seem like that team on the field was as capable as the one that lost to Green Bay was just the year before.
Yeah. I will always think that Cleveland game in the opener, once we found out how bad Cleveland was, I think there was a lot of talk that Cleveland might be a good team, and then you go up to Cleveland and you win handily. And I think we just gave too much credit to Cleveland, and you never were able to kind of unwind that one, because after that, they did not look like a very good football team. And then everything we saw in that championship or the playoff game against Green Bay started to resurface again. So, that opening game, I think, just covered up a lot of the warts, which showed up shortly after that, and then you're scrambling because you did have a very unproductive offseason,
The Moose, Daryl Johnston with us here on the Blitz. Now, unproductive offseason last year, new coach. Do you think Jerry does things differently this year, either through free agency, maybe pay attention to, hey, having a running back room that's capable is probably a smart thing to do in today's NFL?
Yeah, the running back has become popular again. we've got a couple of teams that are using it and using it well, and everybody needs to just kind of look at the whole scenario about Saquon Barkley and what he was doing at New York and what he did at Philadelphia, and understand that comes via the offensive line. He was never going to rush for 2,000 yards as a New York Giant, ever, because that offensive line could not block well enough for him to do that. He did not have a quarterback there that threatens the defense the way that Jalen Hurts does. So when you look at the two really good running backs this year, Saquon is a perfect fit for Philly because of the offensive line, and when you go to Baltimore, you're worried about Lamar Jackson, but you got to focus on Derrick Henry, and it's kind of either or. One of those guys is having a big day against you. So the two that are having great seasons, there's reasons why. Can Dallas find that, or do we have to go old school? Now, if you're going to go old school, I go to the combination of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery in Detroit. It's two different guys, but they're doing it old school style. It's nothing tricky. You don't have a Jared Goff's not going to beat you in the run game. So that's more of a traditional run game. I hope that Nick Chubb gets healthy. Josh Jacobs in Green Bay was a really big addition up there. So I'm hoping that they see how important it is, and that Genti is somebody that we're gonna take a long, hard look at. I know my son Aiden, he's been a fan of his, since last year. And he was getting frustrated with the Cowboys at the end of the season because they were playing themselves out of the position to draft him and was getting very nervous. So I think it's going to be interesting to see there because you can't be one-dimensional unless you have a Patrick Mahomes, right? I mean, Patrick Mahomes makes everything okay. But obviously there's one Patrick Mahomes, and so you've got to have that balanced attack. And that's really what Philly did, right? The first 4 games, Kellen Moore is going to try and win the games throwing the football. We're going to reset that in the break. We're going to come out of the bye. We're going to play different style of football, and here comes Saquon with that offensive line. But if you concentrate on that, Jalen's good enough to beat you with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert. So that's where you want to be. And I love Rico Dowdle. I really do. I think he's a great change of pace back. I don't think he's an every down back that you can hang your hat on, but I think he's a great change-up guy. I love his running style. He runs physical. He runs angry. But you need a workhorse. You need a guy that you can just grind, and he's going to get you 1,400 yards, and then that's going to open the door up for everybody else.
Daryl, I've got to ask you, as a former player and in the locker room, when things go the way the Cowboys' year went this year, Micah Parsons just yesterday was like, even if we signed Derrick Henry, probably wouldn't have helped us much. I mean, so he seems a little bit –
Why not?
Well, I don't know, but he seems a little bit down on the way things went. How do you improve that culture and that optimism among the players?
Yeah, I think it's one of the harder things because everybody has their individual platforms right now. So you've really got to have some strong voices within the organization. If you want to talk, you come talk to us. You can talk to the family first, and then once we've had that conversation, if you want to go out via social media and talk about it, just be smart. Don't share any information that's negative on the team, critical of the team. Try to be positive. And you can find the upside in every conversation if you want to. But if you want to be critical and anti, then you're going to be able to do that as well. So I think the biggest thing is you've got to have, and again, it comes down to the communication thing we talked about with the Lucas scenario that's there, with the McCarthy scenario that's in the Cowboys. If you're not having communication, then you have no culture. So the biggest thing for me in today's era of sports is these guys have their own individual platforms that they can turn on whenever they want, and that doesn't do anybody any good. And I'll go back to one scenario for you. Back in the day, it's my first year retired, and I watched the Cowboys and the Eagles play, and the Eagles it's Andy's first game as the Eagles head coach, and they just bushwhacked Dallas. And you're watching the post-game stuff, and here comes Emmett to the podium, helmet in hand, eye black dripping. He's fresh off the game. He's too emotional. Who allowed him to go to the podium after they just got their asses whipped by the Philadelphia Eagles and do his presser? I mean, Troy always diffused. I mean, he went into the locker room, spilled the bile, and then went across the hall and did the presser, and one answered you and gave you nothing, which is his job as the quarterback and the voice of our team. You're not getting in and prying us apart. And Emmett to go there and just full of emotion and just react in real time, and then over the next 48 hours have to unwind everything he said because you caught him at a raw moment. And that happens every day now. You don't have to wait for a presser that's official post-game, Wednesdays, Fridays, whenever you're going to do it. These guys just jump on their phone and spout something out. So you've got to get something in place where the team is always first. And I just it's hard in today's world because all these guys have their individual brands and their individual voices, and it's a challenge.
Could you imagine social media in your
Army?
day with
No.
the Cowboys, with the White House and everything else that was going on? My goodness.
Oh. I guess everybody would have just known sooner because nobody was going to change. We just all would have known about it, and you didn't have to wait for the book to come out.
There you go. The Moose, Daryl Johnston, here on the Blitz. The UFL getting ready for another season, and we go back a long ways in spring football with the Moose in San Antonio. And you kept saying if we can get from year 1 to year 2, year 2 to year 3, you guys just opened up brand new offices up in Arlington. I mean, here to stay, I think, is the message from the UFL.
Unbelievable from where we were year 1 legacy USFL to where we are now. And for me to stand there in that atrium last Wednesday and just think about what our players are going to have this year compared to what they had back in 2022 in a shuttered hotel that was coming out of the COVID pandemic. And I think we were really the guinea pigs to see if this thing was safe, was functional, and that's the environment that we're in. And to see this beautiful facility, what Doug West and Dave Dykman have done from a logistical standpoint on the football ops side is amazing. The hotels are going to be staying at, the convenience of the logistics, and that's the biggest thing. We're always going to have a nomadic component to what we do in spring football, just like we talked about it the other day, with the way we were in San Antonio, right? We're housed in the Alamo Dome, we're practicing at Central Catholic, and we're lifting at Trinity. That's a busy day with a lot of travel, and that's really kind of the spring football model. And how do we make that easier every day for our guys so their days aren't as long, their days aren't challenging from a travel standpoint. And this is going to give us a huge opportunity, and it hopefully preps us for a potential expansion as we move forward and kind of sets that pace. But I think to your point, to prove to everybody that we're sustainable and we're here to stay, in year 1 we had to be a little bit of a salesman when we were talking to agents and players and convinced them to come our way. And, it wasn't easy because the AAF didn't make it and XFL 2020 didn't make it. Well, here comes another one. Well, what makes you different? Well, what makes us different is we've got Fox behind us. We've got Redbird Capital behind us. We've got Dwayne Johnson and Danny Garcia amplifying everything we do as minority owners. And we've assembled a lot of great football people into this league. The merger made us so much stronger. It wasn't a 1 + 1 = 2. It was like a 1 + 1 = 4. That's been a huge addition. So right now, what we're seeing is players. We don't have to be salesmen anymore. We've got inbounds coming. The agents. Hey, I've got 5 guys that I think are a perfect fit for your league. We've got players reaching out to everybody in our personnel areas. Me, Jim Pop, Russ Giglio, Russ Brandon, Doug Whaley. We're all getting stuff from people in our networks. Hey, I think I've got a guy. I got a diamond in the rough. I got a gem. He's perfect for your league. And then on the coaching side, we make a coaching change this year, and we had reached out to Ken Wisenhunt 2 years ago when he was a consultant in Alabama, and he said, I'm comfortable with what I'm doing right now, but I appreciate the interest. He goes, I've been watching you. I like what you're doing. I think it's a great thing. It's necessary for the NFL. Well, when we have an opening this year, he calls us and say, hey, I heard you got an opening in the league. He goes, I'm ready to come your way now. I'd love to be a part of the interview process. That's fantastic. And then we lose 2 offensive line coaches, 2 good offensive line coaches. We get Tom Cable and Mark Colombo to come in. So, it's just where we are year 4 compared to where we were year 1 in USFL and where the XFL was year 1 is just, it's such an impressive journey in such a short amount of time.
And Daryl, what I think is outstanding, somebody goes to a game in San Antonio at the Alamo Dome, and they come away saying, man, the talent on the field is fantastic.
Yeah.
I think it surprises a lot of people, the amount of talent that you guys have in the league.
There's so many good football players out there that aren't on NFL rosters, and timing, circumstance, offense or defense that was, being implemented in that team did not fit your skill set, so you weren't a good match, and then you just didn't make it. But you're a good football player. You just got to be in the right system. And then to have a guy like Wade Phillips, he is so much fun to work with, and literally, nobody's going to talk about San Antonio this year, right? They go to the championship game last year. They were 8th preseason. I don't know where they're going to be this year, but I think a lot of people are going to be talking about, obviously, Birmingham going for their 4th championship in spring football. Michigan's had a nice offseason. St. Louis has done a nice job again, and nobody's going to talk about San Antonio, and I can't wait for the first time Wade says, that's all right. We'll see you in the championship because all we do is win. All we do is win. I mean, I can't wait for it.
Kellen Mond, San Antonio Reagan High School, going to be the quarterback of the Brahmas, at least signed. I'm assuming he'll win the job, but he still has to go compete for it. But you talk about continuity with coaching staffs. Wade Phillips, the Brahmas announced yesterday the entire staff from last year is returning.
Yep.
That's huge.
Yeah. Entire staffs is something that we have a little bit more control over. The entire roster is hard because we want our guys to have a different opportunity. But a lot of the rosters are coming back. Over the last 10 days, a lot of the guys that are going to wait and see what's out there, and then they're going to come to us late, have started to come back to us, which is another one. You know what? I'm not going to sign in NFL futures. I think my opportunity to continue to get that look in the NFL is more probable playing for the UFL than going through an NFL offseason where I'm in shorts and a helmet. I'm going to the training camp. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to put 10 games of film on, and I'm going to show these guys at the personnel departments across the NFL that I'm better than they think I am right now.
Good stuff.
It is great stuff. I tell you what, it's a lot of fun having them there in San Antonio. It's great. And Wade, you talk about Wade Phillips. We get to talk to that guy once a week, and it's
Wednesdays
fantastic.
with Wade.
That's right.
His press conferences are he's great in the presser, post game. Skip's great in the presser. Mike Nolan, all of our guys are great in the. We don't hide anything. It's great. It's kind of like transparency and clarity is kind of like some of the cornerstones in what we're doing at every level. We don't hide. We try to share the why every time we can. I mean, I love our guys when they come out and they don't BS you in the press conference. I mean, they tell it exactly how it is, and that's the way it should be. I mean, everybody knows what just happened. We just watched it. You know, all you're doing is confirming what we just saw. If you try to tell us we didn't see what we saw, then I'm not going to trust you as much moving forward. And our guys are coming out and like, yeah, we got to get better. That Blitz was killing us today.
I love
it. The technology that you guys use, like for a first down, why are we not using that at the NFL level?
Yeah, I think it's an aircraft carrier right now that wants to turn, but they're trying to figure out whether they should turn. And even once they decide that, it's going to take a long time for it to start turning. We're so agile and open to different things. We've got a technology that we've been working on this since last season. We had it in a few spots last season, and we used it there. We want to expand on that. We worked with the East-West Shrine game with it to see how it worked. We learned a lot. Football is a different game than where it's been used previously, so how can we make it better? Once we get this locked in, this is going to be super cool when you talk about access into earned spaces and really taking the viewer into a different area. And then we'll continue to press with what we're doing, on the sideline with our interviews. I don't know why the NFL won't do certain things. I don't know why they won't. The onside kick is dead. It's gone. And with the new kickoff that the NFL is using, and we're going to go back to that because I really thought that was going to be a one and done. It's going to go to the NFL, and everybody's going to hate it, and the NFL is going to move off it just like they did where you could challenge pass interference. We're going to put it up for 1 year. It didn't work. We didn't like it. We're moving off of it. But the concussions went down last year to the lowest point since they started covering them in 2016, and I'm sure that was a big reason why with the new kickoff. So if it's a player health and safety thing, which we've always said, we'll readjust it. We'll take a look at it. We'll readjust and we'll pivot. And then also for our guys, it doesn't make sense for our guys to practice something that they're not going to use at the NFL level. And we stayed traditional last year mainly because of me, because I thought it was coming back, and I didn't want our guys practicing something they weren't going to use. But if the NFL is going to stay here, then we're going to have to come here. So that'll be one of the big things next year. But I don't know why they won't take our 4th and 12 and convert it to a 4th and 15 or a 4th and 16 or a 4th and 18. Whatever that distance is that gives you the recoverability of the old school onside kick. The 9 guys on one side, squeeze with the runners coming. That was about an 8 to 11% recovery rate if you look at different years. Okay, what's the 4th down distance that matches that? And let's put that in play in the NFL. Because the onside kick is impossible to recover now. There's a couple of them done this year. There was a couple that were close, but it is so hard. It has to be perfectly executed. The conversion is like 1.5 to 2%.
And there's no surprise element.
You can't surprise because you got to declare it.
Yeah.
Yep. Good stuff. Daryl Johnston, the Moose. Always great catching up, my friend.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll see you in San Antonio
Absolutely.
soon when the season gets underway.
Definitely. Look forward to it.